I'm truly grateful to be here today in this roster of such accomplished and talented Glendon alumni. As someone born outside Canada who's made her life here, I'm especially grateful to be part of any Canada 150 celebration. You know, it's hard to believe that Canada had not even reached its first centennial when Glendon, almost 60 now, right, opened its doors. When you stand on this beautiful campus, you see a classic liberal arts college, like those it was modeled on. And that's what Glendon is and has been since it was founded in 1962. Remember when York wanted to move Glendon to the main Keele campus? No offense to our main campus cousins, but we said no because we know who we are. We knew then and we know now. Glendon is a place that holds itself and its students to the highest standards, that prepares young people to go out into the world and do good in both official languages, to create and seize opportunities to become those local and global leaders we just heard about for the next 150 years for Canada. Many past graduates have gone on to work in the arts, and you've just heard I am one of them. Worked in arts organizations or in the institutions that support them. Why did I do that? Well, I'll tell you something of my story. I arrived at Glendon in that wonderful year of 1968. My mother, a white Russian, was born and raised in a Russian colonial city in northern China. She was left stateless and stranded after that revolution. My father, an Iraqi Jew born near Baghdad on the rivers of Babylon, moved with his family when he was 12 to China. My parents met and fell in love in exotic Shanghai, so I was the product of this sort of fractured and displaced combination of cultures. In 1949, 2 years after I was born, the Chinese Revolution left us scrambling for a safe haven. And after 3 years spent in Israeli refugee camps, we found that here in Canada. We arrived at Pier 21 in Halifax in 1953, like so many thousands of Canadian immigrants. When I came to Toronto at the age of 6, it was a very different city from the city we now enjoy. My father changed our family name from Isaac to Davies because of the anti-Semitism he and my non-Jewish mother experienced in our early days here. Now, I spoke English as being the common language of my parents, so I didn't have that additional obstruction, but I had no touchstones. With a name that really said nothing about me, I found it very difficult for years to have any sense of connection to the country that had taken us in. I could not have felt any less of a Canadian or any more of an outsider. Glendon changed all that. The school was still an experiment then. The 60s were in full swing. Everything was changing. I remember endless discussions, some of them quite heated, about the arts, politics, the world around us. But, you know, we didn't just talk about problems, because Glendon always encouraged us to look for solutions. Everywhere around us as well, there were programs, formal programs, and informal extracurricular programs to help us rethink and reveal our emerging adult selves, to try things we had never done before. Not all of them were legal. This was the 60s. There was no formal theater program then. We're standing in this lovely theater space, and I understand, it all comes back. This was the old dining hall, and that is where we did our theater productions on, risers and, a seating put up, and Michael Gregory, the professor of English at the time, who had a background in formal theater and professional theater in England, was an extraordinary mentor. So I had the opportunity to perform in plays. It pulled me in. I got involved. Before I knew it, I belonged to something bigger than myself. Fired up by the arts, I found my confidence, my voice. I even appeared at a play at Tarragon Theatre, Cabbagetown Plays by David Type. I'm sure many of you remember all of those theaters that were springing up in those days: Tarragon, Factory Theatre, Passe Muraille, Toronto Free Theatre, all giving a voice to Canadian writers and actors, and a forum for our stories. The city grew and the arts grew with it. Eventually, I moved out of performing and into arts administration, something Glendon had very well prepared me for. In 1984, I became the head of the Toronto Arts Council, something I could not even have imagined when I first started at Glendon. But at Glendon, no one had ever held me back. No one had even questioned why I wouldn't be able to do something. So why not? Pourquoi pas? Under my leadership, the Arts Council supported and encouraged Canadian and local Toronto talent in all fields: playwrights, poets, novelists, publishers, visual artists, composers, performers. The city grew more diverse, and we diversified with it, but I still remembered what it was like to be an outsider, and I was committed myself and committed the Arts Council to ensuring that we included artists who had once been overlooked. I'm happy to tell you that at the Ontario Arts Council, where I am now chair, they are equally committed to these values. The Ontario Arts Council was established in 1963, a year after Glendon, with this mandate: to foster the creation and production of art for the benefit of all Ontarians. And a few weeks ago, the Premier of Ontario and the Minister of Tourism, Culture and Sport made a terrific announcement. They announced that the budget of the Ontario Arts Council was going to be increased by $20 million. We would be raised from our current base of $60 million to $80 million over the next 4 years. And this is going to help arts organizations and artists flourish and create work for that mandate, for the benefit of the people of Ontario. I'm proud to live in a province that has the foresight to support the arts as it does and as it has just demonstrated. And I am proud to lead the Ontario Arts Council, which, like Glendon, is a promoter and incubator of talent. Even as we support Stratford, Shaw, the Toronto Symphony, and other large established artistic treasures, we also fund a wide range of activities at the grassroots. We fund Francophone arts, Indigenous arts, arts education as well. And here's just a few examples of recent funding successes where the dollars we spent yielded concrete outcomes. The internationally known Indigenous rock music electronic trio, A Tribe Called Red, received funding from the OAC before they came to the attention of the world. Their music has been hailed by Canadian media, by the New York Times, and by the Washington Post, who named their album a year-end top 10 pick. And here's another Northern success story. Just this past May, teenagers in 6 Northern Ontario communities started learning creative digital skills, free of charge, using a state-of-the-art technology at the Near North Mobile Media Lab. We funded that for 6 years. On a slightly grander scale, you may have heard of a musical called Come From Away. Yeah, well, it's Canadian, funded by the Ontario Arts Council, a teeny tiny grant to their creators, Irene Sankoff and David Hine. And when I say tiny, I mean minuscule. It was like the $2,500 tops. It took Broadway by storm and has garnered 4 Helen Hayes Awards and a Tony. These are just a few examples of what makes my role so inspiring. Because I'm not just the chair of the Ontario Arts Council. I am a huge fan of the arts in Ontario. And it was my time at Glendon that nurtured this passion. There's more to the story of what the Ontario Arts Council does than the performances and productions we support. Consider OAC programs that send artists into our schools to share their work, their skills, their passion, to inspire our young people to get involved, to pick up an instrument, to put down their thoughts on paper, or maybe these days it's in a tablet. Join the cast of a play, as I did all those many years ago, right here at Glendon. Ontario Arts Council was one of the first arts councils in Canada to understand the importance of arts education. There's now extensive research that demonstrates the links between arts education and academic success, including literacy, numeracy, and critical thinking skills, which the President also spoke about. Getting involved can help kids find like-minded communities and stay off the paths that leave them restless, bored, and sometimes alienated. Glendon College helped me become the leader that I am. Just as I have no doubt it was the foundation for many of you and the leadership paths that you have taken. My own story and my education here showed me I could have a bright future if I learned to engage and honor all citizens, all stories, all the tiles of the Canadian mosaic. I believe that creating art is a profound human need, not far beyond food, shelter, self-preservation, and love. That's why I do what I do. That's why I want to encourage you to support your local artists wherever you live and work. I'm sure many of you do so already as volunteers, as audience members, board members, donors. Perhaps some of you are artists. Help bring art into our schools and help keep it there. Thank you again for including me among these stellar alumni, and enjoy the rest of your day at this beautiful campus, which I think all of us think of as home. Thank you.